A very good day to all my students. Students, in my last lecture on Sons and Lovers, a novel written by D.H. Lawrence, prescribed for your fiction paper, I had discussed the main features of Lawrence as a novelist, and I had also told you that in my next lecture we would be dealing with the fact of human relationships and the way Lawrence is able to delve and explore into their tiniest details, and how what kind of lesson can be learnt from his portrayal and delineation of these emotions. Now, human relationships form a major area of interest in the novel, and I should like to read out to you what Lawrence himself wrote in his letter to Edward Garnett. Now, this is Lawrence writing. I can only write about what I feel strongly about, and that at present is the relationship between men and women. After all, it is the problem of today, the establishment of a new relation or the readjustment of the old one between men and women. So, when we study this novel, we realize that there are 5 main relationships which need to be explored or examined. The first is between Mr. and Mrs. Morrell, that is Paul Morrell's parents, Walter Morrell and Gertrude Morrell. Then we shall explore the relationship of Paul Morrell with his childhood sweetheart, that is Miriam Levers, and then thirdly Paul Morrell's relationship with Clara Dawes. The remaining 2 relationships fall under the realm of abnormal psychology because they are Oedipal relationships, and this is the first one is between William Morrell and his mother, and the second is between Paul Morrell and his mother. So you do realize that we shall be just kind of working on 5 main relationships, and we shall also see later what was actually Lawrence's love ethic, what was his basic take on the area of human relationships. Now, if we talk about the first relationship, which is actually the core of the novel, the relationship between Paul's parents, that is Mr. and Mrs. Morrell. They have a love marriage because Mrs. Morrell is attracted to Walter because of his warmth, because of the great love for life which he somehow seems to embody in himself. They get married, but later on trials and tribulations start, mainly because he is a minor, means he has a he's very low income, and she is not at all happy with his meager salary. She refuses to associate herself with all the other wives of the miners because she feels that she is a superior person, and this lack of funds troubles her a lot. This leads to an increased friction and tension between them because she always taunts him for being unable to provide. He starts drinking and gambling, and slowly as they raise a family together, she turns the children away from the father. She totally turns the children against Mr. Morrell, and he starts to resent this. Not only does she turn the children away from the father, she totally neglects him. In one incident, when he is hurt and in an accident, he wants to come home, and she is such a petty person that she says that he would want to come home to trouble me more. She does not realize that somewhere he also needs his share of love and his share of care from his family. However, the children in front of the mother, they seem to be totally against him, but Lawrence is able to point out certain incidents where they all enjoy their father's company. Now, a major facet of this relationship which we need to remember is that in this tussle which they have between their two personalities, Walter Morrell is able to hold on to the germ of selfhood. Means Gertrude Morrell tries to totally change him, but he always resists. And somehow, as a part of psychology, later in the novel we realize that it is because he holds on to this concept of self that he lives on, whereas Gertrude Morrell, who had always tried to dominate him, she succumbs to life and she dies. Now, it is this relationship from which the other disturbed relationship of the novel are created. Now, if we come to Paul Morrell's relationship with Miriam Levers, when she is first introduced in the novel, her description matches almost that of Paul's mother, because both are described as being very pure, very innocent, very virginal girls. Mother also when she is initially married, and Miriam Levers later when she of course meets Paul in the novel. And again it is hinted that in Paul's mind she reminds him so much of his mother that initially it is this which leads to an attraction between them. Miriam also likes him a lot, and but always the mother, whenever she realizes that Paul is becoming close to this girl, she's very bitter and she tries to hold him back. She criticizes Miriam because she feels that Miriam is going to steal Paul away from her. So under these circumstances, Paul's relationship with Miriam does not work out. This is also largely due to Miriam's mysticism and Paul Morrell's great love for his mother. Another important aspect which is pointed out in this relationship is that Lawrence, I told you earlier, always emphasized on the physical aspect of love. Now Miriam is very uncomfortable and she has this virginal view of herself in her mind. Somehow she feels that the physical aspect of love is derogatory, and and she only succumbs to it for Paul's sake. She only submits to it for his sake, and therefore since these all three aspects need to be managed in a relationship, the physical, the mental and the spiritual, the physical aspect between Miriam Levers and Paul Morrell is not balanced, and therefore this relationship does not succeed. Afterwards, Paul, when he is working, he meets this young lady whose name is Clara Dawes. He is greatly attracted to her physically. Now she is a representative of the modern woman because she is separated from her husband, that is Baxter Dawes, and she is also attracted to Paul, and for a time period they are very happy together. Now Paul's mother also does not object to this relationship because it is really a paradox, because the mother feels that in this case Paul is only fulfilling his physical needs with this woman, and therefore she would not be able to capture Paul's heart or his love. That would be left again for the mother. Now this relationship with Clara Dawes also does not work out. Now we come to the remaining two relationships in this novel, and I told you they fall in the realm of abnormal psychology because they are Oedipal relationships. Now in this we shall move away a little when I tell you that abnormal psychology became an area of study in fairly recent times. But before that, the masters of literature had created characters who who actually were studies in psychology. Now, I would quote two examples here. If we take the master storyteller, that is William Shakespeare, in Othello, he created the perfect picture, the perfect character of a man who was racked by a neurotic, obsessive jealousy in the character of Othello. If you may have studied Macbeth, maybe in your BA standard, then in Macbeth you have seen the character of Lady Macbeth, who always wanted to wash out that imaginary spot of blood which she could see on her hand. She was always constantly wringing her hands, constantly trying to wash away the spot of blood. Now, later on, psychologists do suggest, and it is a fact which cannot be refuted, that a person who is tormented with guilt, a person with a very guilty conscience, will always be trying to wash their hands, or so to say, trying to constantly keep wringing their hands in order to wash away the guilt. So herein I have just tried to establish and place before you that psychology and literature have a very, very strong link. Now, in 406 BC, Sophocles had written two plays. One was Oedipus Rex and one was named Electra. Now, in Oedipus Rex, Sophocles had dealt with the myth of or the story of Oedipus. He had said that the story goes like this, that there was the king of Thebes, and when he had a son, soothsayers predicted that the son would lead to his death. So he was quite scared, and he told his courtiers to take away the child and murder it. They took the child away, but they could not kill it, and it was left to some shepherds who raised it. Now, Oedipus, when he grew up, he became a warrior, and eventually, over a course of time, he fought his own father, he defeated him, and as was the custom in those days, he took over his kingdom and also married his queen, whose name was Jocasta. Now, later, when incidents came to light and it was realized that Jocasta was Oedipus's mother, he was torn with guilt, and he blinded himself, and Jocasta committed suicide. So, remembering this story of Oedipus, Sigmund Freud, a prominent psychologist, at this time he had promulgated the theory of a mother fixation being present in some sons. The background to this is that Freud had pointed out that the mother is, in a very real sense of the word, a very real sense of the term, the first love in anybody's life. And slowly, as the child grows, the mother and the father, if they are both in harmony, it is a harmonious household, then the child gradually moves away from having the mother as the ideal, and they go on to explore more love in their life. However, if for some reason the relation between the mother and the father is disturbed, and the mother seeks to orient her love in the son, then the son also holds on to this image of a perfect woman being just like his mother in his mind, and therefore he is unable to establish successful relationships with other women. If we take this, you understand now the concept of the Oedipal relationships. There is in no way any physical aspect to this. It is just an emotional love, a strong emotional love which seeks to form a bond which nothing can break, and which definitely stands in the way of the son forming new ties or forming his own family with another girl. Now, William Morrell is in this way the mother's first love, because I told you earlier she has a very disappointing relationship with her husband, and therefore William comes to the center of her love, and he always tries to be there for her when he moves to town also. Then she's very jealous of any girls he meets, and she tells him that tell your friends, my son, tell your girlfriends not to come and ask your old mother about you. And William always tries to put her happiness in the forefront. Unfortunately, he dies, and then the mother transfers the full force of her love and affection on the younger son, that is Paul Morrell. Now, Paul has been a very sensitive child right from his childhood. Even before the mother oriented her love in him, he always loved his mother too much. And at an age when he should have been able to go out to explore the world, all the time he is concentrating on how he could make his mother happy. So even when he goes to the fair, he picks up little pieces, a crockery, a bone china cup with roses on it, which would make her happy. Her favorite flowers, whenever he goes to the market, he is sure to bring her flowers. If he does paintings and he sells them, he gets money from them, he is very happy to buy some little gift, some little present for her. And it is very striking that the time they spend together walking across the beautiful countryside in the golden sunshine, that period is that they feel the happiness of lovers having an adventure together. So all the time he even cleans her shoes, and he calls her his little woman, and she also tries to cook his favorite dishes all the time. Now his mother has such a strong force, such a strong impact on his personality, that even when he wants to explore the world, when he wants to go out, sometimes when his youth strikes out and he feels the need to do that, or to make relationships with Miriam Levers or with Clara Dawes, all the time at the back of his mind he feels that he is doing an injustice to his mother. Now as time goes on, this realization slowly sinks in him, because when the mother says that somehow, my son, you are not able to meet the right woman, he says, and I shall never meet the right woman while you live, mother. So somewhere, you see, we do realize that the novelist is grasps the actual meaning of this terrible love which the mother has put on the son. Now, when Mrs. Morrell contracts an incurable cancer and she is dying away, we do realize that Paul is unable to see the love of his life suffer terribly, and therefore he mixes an additional dose of morphine and she passes away so that her death could be hastened. However, critics also suggest that Paul, in a way, hastens her death to assuage his own guilt, that feeling which he had in his mind. Now, you will read the novel, I am sure, and you will come across an incident where Paul breaks his sister's doll. When they are children, Paul breaks his sister's doll accidentally, and then he is, I told you, he's a very sensitive boy, and he is very racked by guilt when his sister starts crying that you have broken my doll. And he tells her he is unable to fix the toy together, so he suggests to his sister that they should get rid of that broken doll. They should bury it, so that the feelings of guilt which he has in his mind are also buried with that doll. Now, when he gives his mother morphine, critics suggest that he repeats that same behavior, that in his mind he feels that he has wronged his mother by being with other women, and he has also wronged his mother by thinking about her with too much love. He has that guilt in him. Therefore, he seeks to escape from that guilt by somehow assigning his mother to the realm of the dead. He feels that once she is not there, once she is removed from his conscious life, she will again be put on a pedestal in his mind and heart. So he would continually be able to love that virginal, perfect, that pure, virginal, perfect mother image which he has in his mind. So these are the two Oedipal relationships also in this novel. Now we have covered all the relationships, and now if we examine, we see that Lawrence's basic love ethic comprises of three things. Firstly, he believed that in any person, all three aspects should be in balance and in harmony. That is, the mental, the physical, and the emotional quotients of a person's personality should be in a harmonious whole. Secondly, he stressed that any relationship which is made should be made out of an intuition. Means that a relationship should not be formed just because others are doing so, for example, but because there is a conscious need to have that kind of relationship with that person. Means it should arise out of a positivity, not out of any negativity. Thirdly, he stresses in his love ethic that in any relationship, each person must be able to hold on to the core of his or her own self, because as he famously said, in any relationship there have to be two people. If one person totally absorbs, totally dominates, totally overwhelms the other person, then where is the other person in the relationship? So the two should be able to hold on to their individual identity. And in this, he also stated that in any relationship, we need to manage all the aspects. Only when all the aspects of a relationship are fulfilled will it truly be one which leads us to a better, more deeper and more meaningful life, a more creative life, which is really the purpose of life itself. I hope I have made these relationships which are present in the novel reasonably clear. And dear students, if you do have any queries or doubts, I should much appreciate it if you would kindly get back to me. Thank you.